Look, I know the Quad doesn't necessarily yell from the rooftops about what it's about, but talk us through this meeting and whether or not it's becoming, I suppose, a bolder organisation at this point.
Yes, thanks for having me, Tom. So the quadrilateral dialogue, we call the Quad, right now it's an informal discussion between the four nations. What we see, though, is a path and the trajectory that it's on is actually getting to be much more higher in visibility recently. We don't track many meetings of foreign ministers, but this meeting the past week, they actually agreed that they should have the first ever Quad heads of state meeting, leaders meeting in the coming months, which would generate a lot more press, seeing all the heads of government of all four countries come into play. And remember, just over the past year, all of the alliances individually between these four countries and in the bilateral sense have strengthened. Japan, for example, they've been upset because China made it a law last month we talked about where Chinese Coast Guard vessels can use weapons to defend island territories, basically calling them their navy. Things like that bring Japan closer to the quadrilateral dialogue. So we've talked about the word containment. China says that organizations like this are trying to contain China. The group hasn't used that word publicly, but I'd almost say each week, Tom, we could track a containment meter. How close are we to publicly saying that these alliances are going to try to contain China? It's getting closer to that with each meeting that occurs like this.
I mean, it's interesting. The quadrilateral dialogue sounds sort of anodyne, but this is as serious an organisation as you could get in terms of whether it's containment or not, the pushback on Chinese power, and that leaders meeting, that really does ratchet things up, as you said there. What concrete action do you think could possibly come after or during the leaders meeting?
So if you look at, you and I have used the NATO analogy previously before, is what would a NATO in the Asia-Pacific look like that actually tried to contain China? You would start to see more formal agreements. So instead of just an agreement of principles after a meeting, they would say, okay, we're actually going to hold military exercises together, or we're going to state that an attack on one would be addressed or even considered an attack on the other ones, moving toward an alliance. So we haven't seen more concrete actions like that yet, but those are the ones you would expect at an increased trajectory right now. And you can absolutely expect that you're going to hear from China, the foreign affairs and the heads of government, the leaders of government and the Chinese Communist Party at each one of those stages.
All right, so one to watch out for. I'm sure we'll be talking to you about that after it does happen. The other move on China, Joe Biden reviewing supply chains. Now, again, this might sound a bit dull, but this is, I suppose, the reality that COVID has revealed, how crucial China is in so many different elements. And it's not all about, military power and so on, but the soft power, if you like, of the control of these sorts of supply chains that's turned out to be, something that's surprised some people, and the vulnerabilities, I suppose, that have been exposed here.
Yes. So what you're saying is you forgot that one of the elements of the Biden platform was a more secure global supply chain. Yes, a lot of us did amidst COVID and everything else. So he's just following through on what he talked about here. This is a 100-day review of manufacturing, looking at computer chips, at large batteries used for cars, for pharmaceuticals, of course, and PPE, which is of interest to COVID. But the last one is rare earths, something we've talked about a lot and something that is of significance to Australia. So China has the vast amount of both rare earth processing capabilities and mining in its country, and it can really chokehold rare earths, the 17 minerals that are used in all kinds of technology worldwide. An iPhone has 8 rare earths. An F-35 fighter jet in the U.S. has about 400 kilograms of different rare earths inside. So the fact that China holds those is very interesting. And of course, Australia has the 6th largest reserves, so it's very interested in how it could become more of a player.
So, actually, talk us through that, because it's not just the supplies, but how you are exploiting them and also being able to process them as well. And that's the real monopoly at the moment China has, right?
Right. Yes, and President Xi visits rare earth manufacturing and processing facilities regularly. Some of the internal Chinese writings have talked about using the rare earth supply for political gain. So it's definitely not out of the question. And we are seeing, you see one of the largest companies involved in Australia has a contract to build a processing facility in Texas already. So you're going to start to see closer ties between not just Australia and the U.S., but Australia and the Pentagon.
Just 30 seconds or so, but Alexei Navalny, I should say, 2-year sentence plus in Russia. How does this play out? Is he just now silenced? And
yeah, the update here is not good for Navalny. All of the experts that talk about prisons in Russia say that he's going to penal colony number 2, about 100 kilometers outside of Moscow, that is well known for solitary confinement, for lack of communication, and really psychological torture, if not real torture. So the thing to look out for here is, does the movement continue? 11,000 people have been arrested in the Navalny protests. So the question is he able to sort of continue that, as Russia will do whatever it can to discredit him, of course, over the next 2 years and try to make it die out?